Blake Lively tried to extort, blackmail, witness tamper, all of those things with Taylor Swift.
Swift was really hurt after being implicated in this fight.
Blake Lively is accused of using 10 years worth of private texts to blackmail Taylor Swift unless she supported her in court. And guess what? The judge isn't having it.
And so when you think about it, how Taylor all these past few months has been denying that she knows anything about it. She hasn't been part of it. She doesn't want to be involved. But they were behind the scenes already sharing this information with Brian Friedman.
Blake continues to try his patience with publicity stunts and legal wrangling, and now even the court is tired of her diva-level conceit.
He responds directly to an affidavit that Justin Baldoni's attorney, Brian Friedman, submitted to the court, and we've got the details.
Blake, let's just tear the bandage off immediately. Gossip Girl quickly became Gaslight Girl as Lively was accused of blackmailing Taylor Swift in what can only be called the Super Bowl of celebrity treachery. Brian Friedman, Justin Baldoni's lawyer, threw a legal bomb so big that Hollywood's Botox stopped in its tracks.
So when he was subpoenaing Taylor Swift, he knew what he was doing. This wasn't just a fly-by-night thing.
If Taylor didn't go all Blake mode throughout the litigation, this man flatly accused Blake of threatening to reveal 10 years, yes, 10 years, of private texts between her and Taylor.
Telling Taylor essentially that unless she backed up Blake's claims of SH, then they would release personal text messages about Taylor Swift to the public.
Let's dissect that. Imagine supposedly cornering one of the most powerful women on the planet and saying, "Back me or I'm unleashing the receipts," because you are so entitled and desperate for support in your PR dumpster fire. It doesn't end there. For example, is this a friendship or a hostage negotiation?
And then this has been hanging over them since the Super Bowl.
Blake's team allegedly followed up with a brief. By the way, could you delete those messages too? Because if you're going to threaten someone, might as well try to destroy the evidence while you're at it, right? After throwing the support me or else bomb. You are aware of the energy of the traditional girl boss war crime.
And then also that they wanted Taylor to delete text messages, I guess between her and Ryan, but we know between her and Blake. We don't know what is in those text messages.
This is where it becomes particularly crunchy. Brian Friedman wasn't just talking trash. He was risking his license on this. He literally stated, "I'm a lawyer, I'm standing by this. And if I'm lying, you can disbar me." This wasn't some anonymous Twitter tirade. Rather, the allegation was filed in court as a legally submitted sworn affidavit. If you lie in one of those, you face perjury charges and your legal career is going to be destroyed. That is a boiling kettle of scalding truth that is ready to spill, not tea.
That Brian Friedman wrote to the judge. Now, I'm going to read it out to you, and he's asserting how he found the information, and he's affirming that, like, I'm a lawyer, I'm putting my career on the line, I am putting myself on the line.
And guess what? The court threw out the entire thing. Not because he felt it was bullshit, but because, get this, Venal LLP, the law firm that was engaged in the subpoena, is situated in Washington, D.C., not New York. Judge Louis J. Lyman essentially shrugged and remarked, "Yeah, not my jurisdiction, not my circus." The judge just stated, "This isn't my table. Take your scandalous mess to D.C." Blake didn't win anything.
So yesterday, it was known that Judge Lehman had striked the letter that Freeman sent him, explaining why he needed to subpoena Taylor Swift.
As the rest of us were wondering why we're still unmarried on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2025, let's take a moment to discuss that affidavit since the specifics are explosive. Someone very near Taylor Swift was calling Brian Freary Deadman.
I received a voicemail from a person very closely linked to Taylor Swift, whom I subsequently called back the same day. Out of respect for the individual in question, I am not identifying them at this time. However, should the court direct me to do so, I will comply with the court's order.
Simply any source, a call that lasted an hour and 60 minutes of insider drama that makes any Real Housewives reunion seem like nap time was made by someone who obviously had the kind of access that most people would sell a kidney for.
I submit this affidavit in opposition to the motion to strike filed on May 14, 2025 by Blake Lively regarding my May 14, 2025 letter elaborating on the basis for Wayfarer Parties subpoena to Venable LLP. So Venable is the law firm that represents Taylor Swift.
According to the source, during this discussion, Michael Gatley, Blake's attorney, called Taylor's attorney and essentially gave the mafia boss the order for Taylor to publish a statement in favor of Blake. 10 years worth of texts that are not only dubious, but also villain origin stories with tiny details have surfaced online.
Now, Michael Gottlieb, Blake's attorney, he's the one denying that any of this ever happened in the press. So not only is he defending his client, but he's trying to defend himself. This is why it almost seems like his response is very emotional.
As well as the kicker, Taylor's attorney apparently hung up the phone and described the situation as extortion, straightforward, uncomfortable, stressful, and awkward. And as if that weren't enough, a follow-up letter was delivered. Indeed, there is purportedly a written exchange between Blake's team and Taylor's attorney on the whole blackmail sham.
Mr. Gottlieb requested on Miss Lively's behalf that Taylor Swift make a social media statement in support of Miss Lively, given her absence from the Super Bowl that year, and stated that if Miss Swift failed to do so, Miss Lively would release 10 years.
The smoking gun is that Blake's attorneys barged in as Baldwin's team was attempting to process the subpoena, saying, "No, irrelevant. Let's not bring that up. Girl, why are you trying to bury it so deeply if it's so irrelevant?"
If this is what happened, this is extortion, and I believe this happened without a doubt. I'm taking this as fact. You can bank everything on it. This happened. All right.
Let's go back a bit and discuss what caused all of this mess. Blake was not there during the Super Bowl because Taylor had not invited her. While this may not seem like much to most of us, Blake evidently felt that it was a full-scale betrayal, which is what caused her to go into a panic and demand public support as if it were a ransom note.
This is Taylor confirming that this is true.
But a storyline twist: while Taylor was dealing with being legally subpoenaed, Blake was out here pretending to laugh next to Salma Hayek in front of paparazzi, as if she were starring in a Netflix drama called Desperately Pretending I Still Have Friends. The photo ops were so staged that they could have been artificial intelligence generated, and the press noticed that Taylor hadn't spoken to Blake in months. When you have to schedule a catch-up with legal counsel, you know friendship is dead.
So Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds caught up with pal Salma Hayek as their ongoing legal battle with Justin Baldoni continues. Yeah, sure. This was just natural and organic.
Even the Daily Mail and People magazine, which used to be her personal cheerleading squad, reported that Taylor and Blake's friendship had ended. They said they didn't want to be involved in this drama, and that it wasn't like they were on a break, but rather that it was dead, and they didn't want to revive it.
She has spent quality time with the couple over the years, making dinner for them and having a girls' night in 2016. So almost a decade ago, they had a girls' night and she's been making dinner for them. Stop the cap, please. Why'd they get Selma to do this?
Blake is out there fabricating friendship fairy tales for media headlines. So why would she do this while she's being pulled into a case she never signed up for? While Blake is playing Clue and accusing everyone of murder in the conservatory with a candlestick, Baldwin's team is discreetly loading receipts, affidavits, and subpoena filings like they're playing chess.
I don't know. And they say, look, Selma, you got to do this or, they're going to expose this about us. Back in 2017, Hayek praised Lively during a speech at Variety's Power of Women luncheon.
We viewed the video of Blake's PR stunts, including the entire dinner with Salma Hayek incident. Salma appeared to be attempting to socially remove herself from Blake in 2025, as evidenced by her body language, which stated, "Get me out of here." However, the PR picture stated, "We'll always be best friends." Pick your adjective: desperate, painful, hilarious.
What do they have on Salma? Who roped Salma Hayek into this? Does she not know what's going on with the case? Do they have dirt on her? Did they blackmail her like it's being alleged that they blackmailed Taylor Swift?
And Blake is the result of everything from the Super Bowl pout to the subpoena meltdown to the deteriorating friendships. Everyone is following Lively as she spirals out of control, with the exception of Taylor, who dipped. Swifties saw that Hollywood was taking attention, and Travis Kelce even saw that he had unfollowed Ryan Reynolds on the day Taylor was subpoenaed. When NFL lovers start taking sides, you know something is wrong.
And also, Blake Lively had asked Taylor Swift to delete text messages between them from 4 or 5 months before this phone call actually took place with Brian Friedman and this source, this anonymous source, which took place in February. That indicates that Blake Lively was already trying to get rid of evidence.
Let's talk about Judge Lyman's decision, because Blake Lively's PR team has been spinning it like they just won the Oscars. But Blake is out here rushing to file motions, stage photos, and pretend everything is fine while the public is throwing tomatoes like it's a Shakespearean tragedy.
Judge grants Blake Lively's request to Blake Lively's request to have improper Taylor Swift bullion claims tossed out. They're not just bullying claims. We're talking about witness tampering.
No. Girl, this wasn't a victory. Judge Louis J. Lyman struck the affidavit from the New York docket on May 15, 2025, stating that it wasn't his court's business because the subpoena involved a DC-based law firm. Lyman didn't say this because it was false or that there wasn't enough evidence, but rather because it wasn't his court's business.
Is that the judge tossed it out for 2 reasons. One reason was that he said that this is not relevant in this case that we have going here between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And he said that this was kind of salacious and it was to promote a public scandal. The other reason is that he said this doesn't belong in my court because Friedman was asking to see documents from Taylor Swift's lawyer.
However, Blake's team rushed to the media more quickly than she did to Salma Hayek for a staged photo op, flaunting that verdict as though it were a clearing certificate. It's a technicality, not a declaration of innocence, sweetie. Lyman stated unequivocally that the affidavit had nothing to do with any matter before this court, which is legalese indicating this isn't my sandbox. Instead, it's redirecting to customer service energy.
You may think, is that a new dragon? Salma Hayek is married to a billionaire. So first and foremost, let's think about that because that's the hemisphere that Blake Lively is immediately attracted to.
However, this is where it gets juicier. Lyman didn't just say no, he dragged it out. He accused Friedman of using the court as a repository for liberal remarks, which is essentially the equivalent of saying, "Don't use my desk to pass notes in class." He also criticized the affidavit as a clear invitation to controversy. However, he simply stated, "Take this circle to the court that actually has jurisdiction," without denying that it was genuine. That is, see you in Washington, D.C. Pack your subpoena heels, Blake.
Apparently, there were documents showing that this conversation between Taylor Swift's lawyer and Blake Lively's lawyer actually took place, and that he was basically threatened to tell Taylor Swift to post public support for Blake Lively.
And now for the most vicious silence in recent history, Taylor Swift. She is the queen of putting an end to lies. Pictures of her were deleted from Twitter, and rumors of an overnight marriage with Joe Alwyn vanished in 30 seconds. She doesn't wait for things to get heated. Instead, she nukes them. Therefore, when she remains silent about a blackmail accusation involving her best friend who turned backstabber, that isn't silence, it's war and slow motion.
I think Taylor's silence throughout this entire process is the evidence that nothing really happened.
Taylor's public relations team, no tweets, no sources close to Taylor, no off the records, no vibes, no mood board. You know how serious it is when Tree Payne doesn't even bother with a denial, have been made by Tree Payne, the most terrifyingly effective publicist in the industry.